right, so we are streaming live now, guys. Welcome. It is September the 6th, and we are all coming from different areas, but I wanted to say hello. My name is Sandra Gwines. I am one of the co-founders of Cannabis Nurses of Color. I also have Miss Ivory Rosenthal Davis, my lovely partner in crime, and co-founder as well. And we have the fabulous nurse, Shonda Broom, who's also with Ivory out in Louisiana. I'm coming to you from San Diego, so if I say afternoon versus evening, give me a little grace tonight. But yes, we are excited to be here. Let us know in the chat if you can see us, because I'm actually, I don't see the live on my page, but if you guys see us, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, a like, or whatever. Put something in the comments so we know that you're there. Okay, I do see us now. Yes, awesome. All right, so this is our first live going on our Facebook page. If you don't know who Cannabis Nurses of Color is, we are basically a group that was formed pretty much organically at a conference that we attended, where we walked into a room and Ivory and I were like, oh my gosh, look at all these wonderful nurses that look just like us. And we realized that we faced a lot of challenges just as nurses as a whole, but specifically in the cannabis industry. We're definitely not the cannabis nursing industry is not that old, but at the same time, we didn't enter this space in the beginning. So we are kind of late to enter this space, mostly because of legalities, depending on where you live, what's legal in your state, lack of information, knowledge, and just, not even understanding that cannabis nursing was an industry that was being developed. So tonight, I'm just, excited to have you guys here. We have some great announcements that we're going to make, because as we've been kind of rolling with just seeing what this group desires, what our cannabis nurses are looking to learn, and what we need to do as leaders in this industry, we found that there is so much need for advocacy. There's so much need for our voices to be heard, and there's definitely a need for more opportunity and alignment for Black and brown nurses within this industry. So tonight, I'm super excited because one of the stories that I know will definitely empower you guys and give you the real mission and vision about why we even exist is someone who we met at our first initial meeting as cannabis nurses. We met Miss Shonda Broom, Nurse Shonda Broom. She's going to tell her story, and I'm going to preface this by saying, once a nurse, always a nurse. And I'm going to let Shonda kind of introduce herself a little bit, but I'm going to give her a little bit of grace here and actually ask her some questions to kind of get her in the groove. Shonda, welcome.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
So the last time we met, you stood in front of a group of women and you shared a very, very powerful story. And I fell in love with you immediately, because I just said, this is somebody who just has gone through so much, but still stands here with so much grace and purpose. So today, I really want to share your story, but I also want to share a little bit about you. So if I get it wrong, you can fix me, okay? But Shonda has over 12 years experience as a registered nurse. She has worked in a variety of healthcare settings, including owning her own home care agency for 10 years. In the last few years, she's transitioned towards holistic services and holistic health practitioner. She's an herbalist, a spiritual advisor, and she also has her Quorum Dio Holistic Center, which provides holistic, natural, and plant-based products for. So as I've been following you, I just want to say you embody everything that a cannabis nurse is, because you are so connected to plants and the medicine of it, so it's an honor to have you on here, because I feel like someone like you is definitely like the heart of cannabis medicine should be someone like you. So tell us a little bit about your story, cannabis, and wherever you want to start, we can weave it all back here again.
Okay. So I guess to start this story, I kind of got to start where I started at. First of all, I want to say thank you to you and Ivory for creating this platform. I will try not to be emotional through this, but y'all know it makes me kind of emotional. But
It's okay.
You deserve any opportunity to share.
Yes.
But I'm glad that y'all did this because, I remember being so alone, feeling so alone, not being able to, what I felt at the time, even share this story. I would really sit with myself and I would think that I don't even know if I could even talk about this, like if I could ever publicly say it. And I'm gonna be honest though, before I do start, what I struggled with the most was what were my peers think, specifically nurses of color. That's what I thought, because we all know how nursing school is a struggle, going to school is a struggle, but this is me speaking from my experience. A nurse of color, her struggle is just a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I felt that other nurses who knew that, who we shared that common bond in that particular struggle with, if they knew that, oh my gosh, so you really, your nursing license because of cannabis, and I struggle with that so much. And so seeing y'all create this platform, it's like walking in a dream. I'm so serious. It is like walking in a dream. And there are so many others like me out there. And I just look forward to the day when they find y'all, because I'm grateful. Okay. So I wanted to say that. But like you said in the intro, I had a home care agency for 10 years. And that last year when I actually closed, I look forward to the day when you can hear me. I don't know. Okay. So the year that I did close, I started to get sick, and I didn't tell anybody this. And so I would go to the doctor a lot. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I thought it was MS because some of the symptoms, they were mimicking MS. Then your mind goes to panic mode, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, it's cancer. It's that. Oh my God, I'm scared. So I'm dealing with this quietly on my own. And so what I found out was the place that I had been in for 10 years was infested with mold. And so when the guy came out, he was like, you have to close now. He said, you cannot come back in here. He said, the levels are 10 times higher outside than what they should be. So you're in here. And so I had to close immediately. So any of my old employees, if you're watching this is why that happened, okay? So I closed very abruptly, and I became very depressed, all right? I had been a nurse all this time. I couldn't get a job as a nurse, and I know some people might hear that story and be like, that sounds crazy. You couldn't find a job as a nurse. I'm so serious. You would see 10, 20 listings, and nobody will call me back. So on top of closing my business, with that being depressed, couldn't find a job, that being depressed, it just was a lot. So let me see how I could say this appropriately, because I am in Louisiana. Let's just say cannabis got in the mix in the midst of my life during this time, okay? So it's about 6 months later, and I finally did get a job. And when I went to, now all of this happened, and I wasn't where I was at now mentally, as far as with my knowledge of cannabis and all of this and that. So excuse my ignorance. So what I'm about to say, I went on Google, we had a couple of forums, and they're like, okay, let me, try to take care of this so it doesn't show up or whatever. So needless to say, I failed a pre-employment screening. So I called one of my friends, who I'm still friends with to this day, who we went to nursing school together. I said, what do you think they're gonna do? She was like, well, she said, it's really to the discretion of the company if they choose to report you or not. I was like, do you think they're gonna report it? I said, well, she was like, well, how she was acting with you. And I was like, well, so that was a whole nother conversation. So I was sitting and I'm thinking, okay, is she gonna report it? I don't know. A month later, I got another job, and I passed the screening. Everything was clear, everything was fine, and it was doing home health. And I've always wanted to be a home health nurse because I just like to connect with people one-on-one. So, I mean, I fell in love with my job. I'm thinking this is all over. And I get a letter from the nursing board, an investigation. So I go to a lawyer and I'm like, what do you think? You know, like, what can I do? And she was honest with me because some lawyers, they're like, I'm going to just take your money. She was like, I'm not taking your money. She said, let me tell you something. Regardless of what you tell them, they're not going to listen to you. She said, I've seen this happen too many times. She said, the way that they view like cases, you know, is more like they, it's like not on a one-on-one type thing. Like, it's not like they're actually listening to what could have possibly happened to get to this point or whatever. But anyway, so I didn't pay the lawyer. I went ahead and did what I had to do and I submitted it. I was honest in what I submitted, thinking that maybe if I'm honest about this, that a nurse, because we are supposed to be built with compassion and empathy and understanding, will read this and be like, okay. So no, that's not what happened. What ended up happening was they told me I could voluntarily surrender or do a suspension with the state. And I went back and forth with this so much because I felt like if I accepted that suspension, it was me saying they were right, I was wrong. And you know, at this time, that's when I'm starting to learn more about cannabis. Like, I'm researching it. It's not just about the sativa indica thing. Like, I'm really getting into it now, you know, because I'm feeling at this point, if it's changed, it's about to change my life this much, if it's putting me where I'm at now, I need to understand why. And I mean, I'm just like that. I like to research things. So I prayed on it, you know. I tried to weigh all the pros and cons, which I thought I did, but I didn't realize till after all of this. And I chose to voluntarily surrender. And I mean, and when I prayed on it, I said, you know, if I do this, like, my belief is in cannabis all the way. Like at this point, there's nothing that's going to change my mind because I felt like I sacrificed my nursing license, I guess you can say, for my beliefs. And, you know, nothing will ever change my beliefs. And when I did that, you know, I had this vision of everything's going to be great. You know, I'm getting into holistic wellness. You know, this is what's going on right now. I love it anyway. And I'm thinking business is going to be great, right? That became the darkest time in my life. And it was hard. You know, I'm not even gonna lie. It was very, very hard emotionally, mentally. It was hard for my family. You know, at the time, my daughter was 10. So I've always raised my children to be open and honest. You know, I've always brought them up like that. I never want my children to be ignorant to the world. You know, I tell them I raised them so that they understand how to live life when I'm not here, because I'm not going to always be here. So I sent my 10-year-old daughter down, who just finished DARE, by the way. I don't know if they have DARE in California, but and I had to tell her, her mom was not going to be a nurse anymore, you know. And, you know, my daughter was and continues to be a really great support system. She never was like, oh, mama's on drugs, like they taught me in DARE. It was never nothing like that. She has given me a lot of strength. I'm not even gonna lie. So all of that happened. I basically had to life, you know, I had to figure out, okay, so I can't be a nurse. What can I do? So I had to take what I know and what can I do with that? You know, I always been into herbalism. My grandma would teach me about herbs when I was small. I always been into like holistic wellness, things like that. So I tried to think, okay, well, how can I create a life from this? And I'm still creating a life from this. So it's not all like, you know, I'm this big guru or anything. It's still, you know, every day is a process. Holistic wellness, even though it seems popular, it's still pretty new. So, you know, some people don't trust it. So it still got its own struggles within it. But, you know, despite what happened with my license, I'm grateful for the experience because, you know, I was very upset at that lady in human resources who did that, okay? And I guess I was in this victimhood state of mind at the time. Why me, right? And I had to find a way to get myself to be like, okay, it happened, now what? Am I gonna sit in this and cry the next 10 years of my life, or am I gonna figure out how to move on? And all I did was push me into who I am right now. All it did was make me brave enough to say, talk openly about cannabis. I'm in Louisiana as a woman of
Absolutely.
color, know how things are for people down here with that. And so I'm just still, I feel more brave now because, like I said, I thought I would never be able to like publicly say this because of the shame. Within my family, like my aunts, uncles, and everything, I was the first one who went to college and graduated from college. Okay, affirmative action and put in college. Okay, those student loans are still on my credit report. I went through a lot for that, and it was the shame that really did eat me up a lot. But the same people who I felt would have judged me embraced me, and like that's why I say like I don't even think y'all realize how much y'all mean to me. Like y'all truly are my tribe. Y'all really are. So I mean, there's more things within that story, but that's basically the story.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, I know it's hard. It's a hard story, and I just wanted to tell you that we specifically use nurse Shonda Broom because once a nurse, always a nurse, and we're going to continue to do everything we can to support Shonda to get her license back if that's what she desires. Because as a patient,
right?
As a patient, she deserves to be able to use the medicine that she would like to use. She deserves the choice.
And see, that's the thing too, Sandra. So I have dealt with high blood pressure like since my early 20s, right? And I believe I have white coat syndrome because at home it's normal, but when I go to the doctor, it's like stroke level, and I'm sitting there calm and they panicking, right? I'm like, look, I'm fine. So I told him, I said, I do use like CBD sometimes or whatever, and I said, and I started talking to him about the laws and how they changing and all. This is all before HB, the recent one I passed where any physician can write. And so he was like, well, maybe you should try cannabis. And I mean, he's not a cannabis doctor, but he is a holistic doctor. So he completely believes in the plant,
Right.
And so he suggested it. And then it's like in the same breath, how can you say I could do it if I'll never be able to get my nursing license back if I'm doing it? So, and you know what he told me? He said, well, you have to think about it. Because I did tell him what happened with my nursing license, And he said, well, you have to think about it. What's more important? He said, saving your life or being a nurse. He said, I know, you want your license back. He said, but you're always going to be a nurse. He was like, that's not going to go away. It's just a piece of paper. And he said, you seem like you're happy with what you're doing. And, that was like an eye-opening moment for me as well. But at the same time, it's like, how would I ever get my nursing license back? It's like, you really do have to decide, as a nurse, am I going to use this as medicine? Especially if I believe in it as being medicine, or, I'm going to, choose the license thing. And I'm just hoping these laws change. I really do hope they are changing. Louisiana is becoming more progressive than I thought, with a lot of things that have happened recently. So, I have faith. And if I don't get it back, I'm still going to keep pushing forward, and I'm still going to be that person for other nurses like me. If they ever need somebody to talk to or just anything, I'm still going to be the same person I was with or without it. So,
I think Sandra's phone is on mute, but I was going to say,
I'm back.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Aubrey. Go ahead and talk.
Well, I was going to segue when she said she hopes that the laws change.
Yes.
And I was just going to say that's dependent upon us. And so that's something that I've been really, really passionate about here, especially lately. And I don't think I've introduced myself. For those that don't know me, my name is Ivory Davis. I'm here in Louisiana as well. And I'm a co-founder along with Sandra with the Cannabis Nurses of Color group. And so one of my passions now more than ever is following the politics, because as Shonda just shared her story and just talked about she hoped that the laws change. Well, it's incumbent upon us as advocates, as influencers in this space, as nurses, it's gonna come on us. And I don't think a lot of people follow, or they probably don't follow as much as I do, because it's just something that I'm just zeroed in on right now. There's a lot of movement going on in the cannabis space, like a lot of movement. You may not see the movement going on your traditional news channels. I'll be honest about that, it's not going to be there. It will be in just in channels and circles of people and reporters that report on the cannabis space. But nevertheless, even though it's not breaking news on your TV, there is a lot going on in the cannabis space. And I'm just charging any advocate on here to be in tune, to seek it out, to just on your computer every day, go and just press Google, search cannabis, and see what pops up, because there's a lot going on. And like what I like to tell people is not dependent. It's I have a hard time talking about politics because I don't want to get political, but the war on drugs is political. I have to come to terms with that. It is political. However, when I talk about the politics involving the cannabis space, I'm not talking about your political affiliations or your political preference. I'm talking about the actual road to decriminalization. It's important to know, what are our leaders saying? Where do they stand? And if you follow it enough, you will be it will make your head just turn, swivel. So I would actually share in the group too, where I've just been following. I've done a part 1 and a part 2. I'm working on a part 3, where I'm just constantly bringing the up to date information on following the politics. For you guys that do not know, please research MORE, MORE. That's a very important bill, or a very important act that's due to be voted on by the U.S. House of Representatives later this month. Where that is, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but marijuana opportunities, I think reinvestment and expungement. But yes, so it's a very comprehensive bill that's coming before the House. It's going to be huge. It's going to be historical. And the big push is not about it being, coming before the House and even passing the House, because it's expected to start on the House floor, I believe, the week of September the 21st, and it's expected to pass the House. The hurdle that we as advocates need to be looking for and watching out for is, we need to make sure that after it passed the U.S. House, that the Senate actually takes it up. Okay, that's what we need to be zeroing in on. And I'll be sharing more information on our CNOC page, and I'll be sharing more information because I'm following the politics. Because at the end of the day, we can hope and wish, but it's about the politics, and it's about putting pressure, applying pressure. And right now, it's political season. If we don't get, I hate to do hypotheticals, but this is why I'm passionate about it. Because when I think about, if we don't get more passed now, like before November the 3rd, because we don't know what's going to happen November the 3rd. So that's even more reason why these next 60 days are crucial. I can't explain how crucial it is for the cannabis space, because if more doesn't pass, within the next 60 days, let's just say, I don't know when it'll pass. And I won't go into all of that now. I'll share the links to explain to you why I'm saying I don't know when it'll pass, and the ins and the outings. But just for now, guys, just know that The MORE Act is coming before the U.S. House floor later this month. The biggest push is to make sure that the Senate uptakes it. That's the biggest push. It's not about who wasn't a cannabis advocate 15, 25 years ago. And what it's about making sure that the Senate, that we apply pressure to the U.S. Senate to uptake the MORE Act once it passed the House. Okay. It's not about November right now. In December later this year, and I talk about this in my series, there's another critical vote. But guess what? That vote is later on, but it's equally equivalent now, equally important now, because there's a lot of action, a lot of steps being taken now that's influencing that vote. So I won't go into all that now, other than to say, you guys just look up MORE Act. I'll put that information in here as well.
I put the link below. I put the link below for everyone so they can follow. So I put part 1 in there, and if you watch part 1, you'll find part 2. But I put the links in there to Ivory. She does a very good job of breaking everything down and giving you the kind of step-by-step of what's been happening and what's leading up to this, this vote later on in the year that's important with the WHO and all this good stuff. So follow Ivory, because I'm not the politics girl. I'm the touchy-feely plant chick, but Ivory keeps me straight on the politics. But politics is important for everybody. So even though that's not my lane, I definitely take the time to listen to the information that's put together. She puts it so well together. You guys don't have to go and she's just giving it to you step by step. Here's where we were at, and here's the wrap up, and it's interesting and exciting. And thank you, Ivory, for doing that. It's a wonderful breakdown of what's happening in the political realm and why it matters to us. I'm going to segue here to something that I think is really important, because I know we have more nurses on here, and some nurses that may not have been following cannabis or may have been following cannabis. I don't know, but let me know kind of where you fall. Let us know where you fall in this. Are you just kind of surface level interested in cannabis nursing? Are you already diving in and doing something in cannabis? Feel free to share that in the comments and let us know kind of where you are, because that helps us know who we're serving and who's out there and what the needs are. If you're not, as Ivory said, following like normal, and that's norml.org or .org. Make sure you're following them, because they tell you everything that's happening in your state. They also put in there any votes that, anything they're voting on, or, what's coming down in legislation. So make sure that you're staying, up to breast on that. And my next thing that I wanted to share, because I think this is super important, and Ivory and I are probably like nerdy about this, but if you don't have this book, and we are going to be, actually, because we said we were going to do it, so after this I'll put together a little raffle for anybody from our CNOC group who joined live tonight. You guys will be entered in the raffle to get some goodies, because we said we were going to do something tonight for y'all that listened in. So this is a document. I keep saying it's 60 pages, so let me make sure. Okay, it's 60 pages. That was developed by the NCSBN, which is the National Council for State Boards of Nursing. This has not only the guidelines for nurses and how to take care of medical marijuana patients and what our responsibility are, and how we need to understand the endocannabinoid system and contraindications and what to look for and how to guide patients, and basically everything you should be doing if you're working with cannabis patients. However, ask me what hospitals are walking around with this anywhere, showing this to anybody. Not one. Okay, so the National Council for State Boards of Nursing is the council that puts together the NCLEX. It's our board of nursing. These are the same people who are, licensing us. So it's important for us to know that there are guidelines out there for medical marijuana patients, yet we are not doing anything with this. I mean, basically, this is what I use as kind of my lifeline when I talk to doctors and healthcare professionals, to show them that we are legitimate and a real, this is a real thing. Cannabis is medicine. Here you go. This is how we are to take care of cannabis patients. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to go through it all, but you can actually go on the website for journalofnursingregulation.com. You can go on there, and I think it's up on the top right-hand corner. There's a link to the guidelines, okay? And you can print off a PDF. We have a few of these that we will give away because it's nice to have a hard copy, and nothing like walking into a meeting somewhere and being like, hey, this is why I'm doing this, because it says right here that that a student needs to learn about the endocannabinoid system. This even has not only for nursing students, but for nursing programs. Like this one is medical marijuana education and pre-licensure nursing programs. Okay, so that means schools need to be teaching nurses about the endocannabinoid system. So, if you're looking for ways to get involved, and entrepreneurship is something that you're passionate about, or volunteerism, as Ivory always recommends, come up with your little presentation, take this little book out, highlight some important sections, and bring it into some of these schools and show them what it is that nurses need to be learning. Because the truth is, if we need to move cannabis nursing forward by using our voice and by using the resources that we have available. So this is an official resource, and this is something that every single one of you should use to present your findings, why cannabis nursing matters, and why as a nurse you have the right to discuss cannabis with your patient. And then the second level of this, second layer of this onion is, we as patients. I am a cannabis patient, and I don't hide that from anyone. Is it challenging? Yes. Do I know how it will affect my career? I don't know yet, but that's something that I'm willing to toe the line on right now, because I find this to be extremely important. Cannabis has been very powerful for my family. My husband is a retired vet, and I went through postpartum depression and lots of other issues that cannabis has significantly helped me with. And there is not a day in my life that I don't feel grateful to have access to this medicine, which I know is a privilege because I live in California and I have a lot of, opportunity to access things that people don't in other states. And that's why we are here, because we should all have access. So right. If you have questions, I'm gonna let Shonda kind of chime in again, because I feel like we haven't heard from you back there. And so I'm gonna let Shonda kind of chime in a little bit. And then I'm also gonna take any questions from anyone that's watching live now. I am looking at the comments. I'm also 100 years old in social media age. So sometimes it takes me a minute, but y'all, we're going to get there. All right. So Shonda, I'm going to segue here for you. You've pivoted, which is an amazing thing. And I just want to use pivot as an important word right now, because there are many of you that are watching right now that are in this land of what the heck is happening in the world, what's happening in the United States. There's so much unease right now, right? Everything is up in the air, and there's a lot of feelings of people wanting to leave nursing, traditional nursing. People are looking for alternatives. People are looking for different things. So I'm going to actually give this opportunity for Shonda to kind of talk a little, because I know you do like so many different things. You got a line of seeds and all kinds of stuff. So tell us a little bit about some of the programs that you're doing and, kind of what you offer, because I think that would be good also to kind of show people, the different lanes and things that.
So one of the things, well, because of the pandemic, it's not going on right now, but despite what has happened with my nursing license, I actually get invited to my alma mater, the college I graduated from, and I participate in like a stress less fest with the students. And, I give them tips, and it's a free thing. They do it like the week of finals. And it's just, how to deal with stress, talk about meditation, different, holistic practices to help them kind of chill out during that time. And I always get to interact with nursing students, and it is so amazing, because I'm like, I used to be them, right? And now here they are listening to me, and all of them would always ask me, so, how you started doing this? Like, we're not reading about this in no textbooks. Like, if you want to know anything about holistic or cannabis, it's kind of you as a nurse going off on your own, looking into these different things and learning. And so I just said, I didn't tell them my story, of course. I just said, where my path just kind of shifted, and I, decided to get more into holistic. I said, it's just something that I'm really passionate about. And then then they started to say, well, I'm just going to be a nurse for like a year because I really want to do this, or I don't want to do this because, and I think the problem is that they see the stress of being a nurse. And it's so sad, the stress that is put on nurses, because how selfless we are in taking care of other people. Like, for example, there was no reason that everything that went on within the pandemic and they only got $250 down here. I mean, that was just wrong.
Yes.
Like nurses are your nurses and your CNAs, that's your frontline people. And I wish this world would have took better care of them. I mean, this country, I wish they would have. But that's another story for another day. As far as what I have going on. So first of all, I'm officially a 501c nonprofit organization. And my focus is on holistic wellness. It's also focused on children because, like I said, when I was going through my issue, it wasn't just me going through it. It was my children going through it. So it was like we all were working through this together. And so one of my projects I have for children is the Cdh Garden Kids, and we send them out like a free starter kit to start growing plants. And what that's for is because of the pandemic, we know as adults, we've been stressed out and on edge and anxiety and things like that. But nobody never stops. So what about the children? I mean, they're children, but they're still little people. And although they can't express frustrations like we do, they're still dealing with it. So that's part of what the plant project is, to kind of help children channel that energy that they may be feeling and to get more out into nature, because nature is great for grounding yourself. Another thing is, so I'm debating on what day I'm going to actually launch it, but for over a year now, I've been working on, so like write classes, like, metaphysical classes that I do online. But for over a year now, I've been working on a holistic cannabis consultant course. And so, of course, it's not going to be certified through any state thing or like that, but who knows? That's my goal one day, that it's going to actually be certified. But I want to be able to incorporate holistic and cannabis because they really do go hand in hand, together. But another thing is, so there are a lot of courses that's out there, and a lot of the courses that's out there, like you have to have an active nursing license. So therefore, I couldn't take no classes, right? I pretty much had to kind of learn on my own, research on my own. Like I said, with y'all being in a group, y'all post amazing things that lead me to go research more. So, I mean, that's been my method of learning. But this course is going to be open, basically to anyone. It does not, no stipulations, because we have to be realistic here. We headed towards federal legalization, whether they want it or not. Now, when it's going to happen, we don't know, but it's going to happen. And to me, I feel what's important is education, especially among teenagers, because in their mind, they just think that, oh, it's cool to smoke some weed, right? But people need to understand it's just not about smoking weed or people getting high. Like cannabis is medicine. You know what I'm saying? Like cannabis is a very spiritual plant, if you ever connected with it like that. So it's so much more than what the world believes cannabis to be. And education is so important. So I'm really going to be pushing that a lot, like just knowledge of the plant, especially once we out of this year, this crazy year, but 2021, that's a lot of my focus, to really push education. And, hopefully, things are somewhat back to normal, that I can actually be in the community doing these things. I want to be able to do these things free within my community, especially like rural communities, because like I said, we are in a place now in Louisiana where any licensed medical doctor can write a prescription for anything he deems as being medical condition appropriate for the recommendation of cannabis. All these long words we got to use because we always got to be careful what we say, right? But, it's like so you have all of these doctors who may start, recommending, but you have a lot of people who are still not really educated on cannabis. So that's a big thing for me, just the understanding of the plant, because it was the understanding or the beginning of understanding the plant, which, kind of pushed me towards making my decision in the first place. So.
I love
and
it.
that's good, Shonda, because a lot of times you find well, we in the nursing space, you find a lot of training that's geared toward, healthcare professionals, but it's good too, we do need to be training the lay population, people that, don't know anything about it being a medicine or anything, or the plant that it is, so that you're reaching the community and the lay population. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, I talk about this all the time because I feel like it's the biggest challenge is that the people who need the medicine the most, are chronically ill, heart conditions, diabetes, all those things. I mean, we know it because we see it in our families, we see it in ourselves. And when we talk, I mean, it's not the first conversation they're going to try it. You know what I mean? You're going to have to talk to your elders, and we have to talk to our community. It's a process. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the really important part about this is, I always say, if we want to help, our grandfathers and our grandmothers and our aunties and everyone else to use this plant as medicine, it's not going to be with the excitement that we have. It's going to be with reconnecting with them on the past, how they treated themselves in the past. Remember when y'all used to make those teas? Remember when you make the salves? Remember when grandma used to make the liniment or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, it's going back to those roots. And I talk about this because it's so, it's something that's so important to me, because my mother's from the Dominican Republic, my father's from the Dominican Republic, and they brought all those remedies with them, right? And then you saw them slowly get kind of seen as old fashioned, or, not, the Western medicine kicked in. And I always feel like I wish my mom would have been supported in those practices, because I feel like her health would have been better if she would have had that support, but we are, when I see holistic medicine now, and I talk about this all the time, even with cannabis, it's like, it's a trend. There's like this trend, we see things that are trendy in the magazines, where it's like, if you want to be better, sage your home. Well, that's not going to do it. Okay.
Right.
Like you can't sage away the cancer. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's more to it. And I think that just having these conversations and kind of sharing the truth about, what the medicine does, but also keeping it real, because the part of, we have to be community nurses. We have to be community nurse oriented, because we really are the ones who are going to reach the communities, because a lot of people are not even open, I mean, they're kind of open, but they're like, is it legal? Is it not legal? Like, even with CBD, I find it's a lot of talks before we get to that place where they're like, okay, let me try it, and there's just so much that needs to be presented in a way that, I tell people all the time, I'm from the hood. I was born in the hood, in the Bronx. That's where my comfort is, working in the community. So, when I've always worked in the community. And what I love about working in the community is that there's education to be done, but it's conversations. You know what I'm saying? The education has to be conversations, because I think sometimes right now, like even with this education that you're talking about, we want to keep it so that it's tangible and not something that's like, yes, we need to teach them about why cannabis helps and how it helps. But sometimes I feel like we definitely need to bring it back to having conversations as opposed to this high level education, because we lose a lot of people in the, when we start teaching, first of all, the endocannabinoid system. People are like, well, what system is that? Because I ain't never heard about that before. I got a cannabinoid. What is that? I got an endocannabinoid. Oh, I have I'm like, yeah, you have an endocannabinoid system. They're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah. And then they're like, okay, so when I smoke weed, right? And then that's another thing, is we use the word weed, and some people are like, no, make sure you use cannabis, because that's the official name of the plant, and we don't want to use the derogatory terms. But when we're talking to our people, we have to meet them where they're at. And if that's what they understand it and know it as, then that's what we're going to call it, And so one thing that I want to, keep the focus in our group is always, remembering that there's lots of different parts of our community. And always remember to kind of reach people where they are. And if weed is what they call it, that's what they call it. And whatever, marijuana, cannabis, I'm like, call it what you want, but let's get to the place where you're getting healthy. You know what I'm saying? So,
And you know, Sandra,
so I'm just
saying with that is, I think that's why it's so important that the nursing boards, they really need to get to a place where they embrace this, because, you know, like you said about meeting people halfway, it's not about going to sit in front of that patient and saying, oh, well, your doctor has you on 50 milligrams of THC and 30 milligrams of CBD and da 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 da, and you got like people who are looking at them like, what are you talking about? You know, I think that it needs to be taught so that that ignorance behind the plant, because some people still have it, whether they're a nurse or not, has to be removed, or at least come to a place of understanding, because they're going to meet these people in a community. I mean, they're meeting these people right now in the community. And if you don't have an understanding of cannabis, or at least have an open mind of trying to have some type of understanding about cannabis in a non-judgmental way, you're not going to connect with your patients. And those nursing students who are coming through right now, and these new nurses, and even these old veteran nurses, they have to understand that, like, this is a new type of nursing. This is a new thing that we are entering in with cannabis nursing. And the approach really does have to be different. You know, it doesn't always have to be in a analytical manner. You know, I mean, I just love what you said, how you said meeting people where they are. Mm-hmm. I feel like part of that is the heart of cannabis nursing. You know, you have to get down to where people understand you, and you make them feel comfortable enough that you understand them.
Well, I think the challenge too is like, even with, my biggest challenge doing consults or talking to anybody is that a lot of people will say, well, I tried that before and it didn't do anything. Or, you know, I tried that before, you know, they didn't get the results they were looking for. But a lot of times people don't initially try it for the results that they're looking for. They tried it because somebody had it, or, you know, whatever. And then when you start to teach them how there's different strains, and, you know, it's not even about the strains, about the terpenes, and just start talking to them about things and explaining to them in a way that they understand. Like, you know, when you peel an orange, how it smells like fresh and kind of, you know, reviving, you know what I mean? That's the same thing that's in some of these strains. You know, that's going to give you that, you know, that ability to, you know, be motivated and not feel depressed. You know, it's going to get you feeling more positive. And so when you start talking to them just about regular things that they know already, okay, lavender, you know, how lavender makes you feel, okay, those properties are present in cannabis. And that's kind of where like my talks really kind of go. I talk like a little bit about cannabis and mostly about things that people already know. And then I'm like, see, just like cannabis. But I think that's, you know, something that's super important. Just with every community, it's going to be different. You know, I say, so with my family is from Dominican Republic. They're like very Catholic, certain way. I talk to them about cannabis because I can relate to that, you know. And then when we go to Mississippi and visit my husband's family, there's a whole nother way that we kind of go about talking about cannabis, you know. So it's been a journey, you know, to learn kind of like how to navigate conversations about cannabis. But I think that's what we're here for. We're here for that journey, you know. And what you're not going to learn in any course, class, or certification or whatever is how to have these conversations. Because the truth is, you need to go to every single person and listen to their story, because their story is what's going to help you, you know, help them build a relationship with cannabis. You know what I'm saying? Because cannabis is a relationship, you know, and people need to know like how it makes them feel and how they are going to, how they can tweak it. You can't tell them like, take this and, you know, call me in the morning. Like, you know, they have to build that relationship, and they have to build that trust with cannabis, and they have to, you know, touch and feel it and smell it. Like I always tell Ivory, I'm like, everybody needs to touch it, okay? You need to touch it, you need to smell it. If you haven't smelled it before, how could you possibly understand? But I just want to quickly say hey to everyone that's out here. I'm gonna do my best, y'all. Swan, hey Swan, Colette Waters, Ebony Smith, Nicole Brown. We got I'm just saying hey y'all. I'm not gonna be able to do this every time because you know we're growing. So So get your shout out on the first video. Stacy, Bex, Tala, Augustine, and who else is on here? Dawn Marie. Hey y'all. Hey, if there's anyone else, I'm sorry. I can
Hey
only see the
y'all.
names that are on
Thank you for joining.
the comments. If you have questions before we wrap up, we got about 6 more minutes and then we're gonna wrap this up. I'm hyped, so obviously y'all can tell, but really it's because I see the excitement, I see the passion. I know that there's so much work to do. You know, we're slowly unfolding and growing into this profession, you know, and some of us, you know, and I always say some of us it's a side hustle, some of us it's a hustle, some of us it's, you know, it is what it is. You know, don't feel like you have to, Nicole said, my hubs heard you and said, hey, you got a shout out. But that's what we do with shout outs today. So, you know, but I really wanted to keep this informal. We want to let y'all know we're just regular people with, you know, a passion and a love for, you know, cannabis nursing and why this matters, especially for our Black and brown sisters and brothers, because I really feel like there is so much of a need for us to move the needle forward to prevent more people losing their license, you know, like Shonda has, and then also to keep fighting so that, you know, Shonda can get her license back. You know, cannabis is medicine. 33 states say it is. So are they wrong?
Right.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it really is, you know.
33 states currently, and if my count is correct, I think it's 12 states. That's something that I'm working on, but I think it's like 12 or 13 states that has some form of cannabis legislation on the ballot in November. Hashtag cannabis on the ballot. So yeah, I think it's like 13 states.
Can you post those in the group when you get a chance? Which states
I
they
will.
are?
Yes.
That way we can follow, and that way if it's your state specifically, then you can follow what's happening and you can make sure that you get out there and vote and that you make some noise around, you know, what matters, you know, for your state, because every state is a little bit different. And I know, you know, COVID, coronavirus and everything else, it's really put kind of things on the back burner. I know here, one of the laws they were trying to pass, or it was a Senate bill, I think it's 305, which is where if you are on hospice, you know, if you're terminal, that you would be able to use cannabis. You couldn't, it could only be like an oil, I think it was, or I think it had to be like an edible or oil or something like that, but you couldn't have, you can't inhale it. But they would let you use it if you were terminal and in the hospital. And so we were waiting to see if that was going to pass this year, but with everything going on, I don't think they're even going to be working on that this year. So it's, you know, we're kind of waiting until next year, but these are the things that are important. So kind of seeing like where things are, and then also putting fire underneath some of these things so that they don't go away, you know, so that they don't go away. Where I live, even though California is amazing and everything, blah, blah, we don't have a social equity program in San Diego. So it's something that I'm really following now, because I'm like, how is it possible we have all these dispensaries and all these people and all these programs, all this stuff, and we have medical marijuana program and we don't have any kind of social equity program? So that's something that's my, you know, little box that I'm working on. And so, you know, I wanted to end this, and you guys can chime in, but I think for a call to action is know what's happening in your state so that you can be forward thinking and already have an idea of where you know, how you can vote or how you can help move that forward. And then the second thing is know what the policy is at your employer. So I think these are important to know, because eventually we're going to come and do like a full, I'd like to have people kind of report in where they work and what their drug policy at their employer is, if you know. And then the other thing is, honestly, if there's allies on here, people who are not Black or brown, and you are at a hospital or anywhere else in the system, healthcare system as a whole, you know, make sure that these meetings that you're in, you know, if y'all know when you hire people in the system, there's always a panel, 5, 10 nurses, whatever. You always got a bunch of people. If there ain't brown people in that panel, don't let it go down. Say something. Make sure that there's brown people at your table. Make sure that there's people in leadership that are looking at these positions and making sure that there are, you know, that there's equity and that we have ownership in some of those roles. And just because you're a person that's told to sit in a panel and ask a few questions off a sheet does not mean that you don't have the opportunity to demand that there be other people who look like you at those seats. And if you're white, then use your privilege to make sure that those seats have brown and black people in them, you know, interviewing and interviewers and interviewees. So that when we're coming into those positions, we're also seeing people who look like us at the table. That's all I got.
That was good. That was good.
That's all I got. I love y'all. Thank you so much for joining in. I'm gonna give a few seconds just for any last minute questions. We are right at the top of the hour now. But I think that was everything. If you don't know, so I'm gonna address this real quick, and it's always you know, it's not to make things awkward, it's to make it a safe space. So we do have a community called the Cannabis Nurses of Color. It is a private group. Nurses who are black and brown, identify as such, can join the group. We have kept it that way because we would like to create a safe space for our community. Doesn't mean that, you know, we don't want allies. That's why we created these forward-facing pages, these public pages, so that we can have everyone included, so that we can have more transparency in our conversations, and so also that we can bring in more advocates and allies to join us on some of these projects that we're going to be doing. So hold on, I think Ivory's muted. Are you unmuted, my dear?
Yes.
Okay, say something.
I was just gonna announce our next series, our next speaker. We will be talking about we will have a nurse of color that will come on talking about cannabis stocks. So we'll talk about stocks and investing in general and getting more information on cannabis stocks. So be out on the lookout for that. I think the date is September the 20th, but we'll definitely send out more information ahead of time about that speaker series as well.
Yeah, so our speaker series is basically, this is the kickoff with Shonda, but we will have a speaker. We have 2 speakers each month up until December. And then in December, we are kind of tapering things down a little bit for the holidays. In December, last announcement. So in December, it'll be a year since we formed. We are officially unofficial, but we're getting there. So we formed in December 7th, I think it was, around there, at another conference that we attended. So we want to make sure that we honor that. We honor the fact that we had this, you know, wonderful group of nurses that we've connected with and been able to share and spend this year of just being a collective of information, resources, advocacy, and support for Black and brown cannabis nurses. So we do have an event coming. We're going to do a virtual retreat for our cannabis nurses of color coming in December. So stay tuned for that. We have some fun things in store. And while we would love to have been in person doing this, that's not possible with everything going on. So just stay tuned, because we are literally rolling things out as we go. If you have questions for either myself, Ivory, or Shonda, you can obviously comment in here or message us on social media. I did include Shonda's pages for you to follow her. I put a link to Ivory's political talk. She's got a 2-part series on YouTube, which is very informative. And then if you guys want to follow me, you can follow me everywhere at The Kush Nurse. And that's it.
Awesome.
I am going to end the live.